Hey, yo, peace to the family. Sitting here looking at the aftermath of, we had a great fight party last night. Jaron Ennis, Xander Zayas versus Jaron Ennis. That was a great fight. The main event was great. Ben Whitaker did his thing. I think he fought a dude named Popeye. Dude came to the ring with a pipe in his mouth, and I think that was the guy. I really don't know. Pipe and a Popeye the Sailor Man had, or maybe was that Vargas. Either way it go. The fight card was kind of mid, but the main event lived up to the hype. Boots did show everything that a lot of his fans say he had. I did see the glow last night a little bit against Xander Zayas. Again, I didn't know who Xander Zayas fought. Really didn't know who the hell Boots fought, to be fair. You know what I mean? I know he fought Karen Chugga. I know he fought Avocado, and I know he fought Lima Bean. You get what I'm saying? So I think Xander Zayas, was the biggest name on his resume thus far. But, Xander did his thing. You took the fight. You didn't have to take it. And congratulations on that. So shout out to Boots. He did his thing. But I'm sitting back looking at the post-fight interview. And this is Jaron Boots Ennis' moment. He won a big fight on a big stage. His father, Bozy Ennis, is right there next to him. Eddie Hearn on the other side of Jaron Ennis. And, reporter Sean Zytel asked him about, hey, man, did you see the tweet that Terence Crawford posted on Twitter? He said a tweet. And he didn't even tell the man what the tweet was about. So I think Bud said something very, very vaguely. He was like, yeah, man, I would leave. I'm going to keep my comment to myself and all that stuff there. That's all he said. So Sean Zytel is a part of the mainstream media. You get what I'm saying? This video is not about him, but, he's a part of the mainstream media. And I realized what I noticed was there seemed to be some kind of type of obsession with Terence Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis. And I know what it's about. So, in one aspect, because Bud was looked upon as the villain in boxing. His promotional company, they paid him well when he was over there. They paid him good. He did get paid well over there. And then, of course, when he left, he went to heavenly heights financially, thanks to Turkey Al Sheik. You get what I'm saying? However, but I noticed, he was always the villain in this and that. And I remember when I interviewed Bud, and I asked him a question when I interviewed him for the Marjamov training camp. I was at his training camp. And y'all go back and look at that interview. It's in my library. And I asked him about it. He said, I don't really F with the media. I asked him a media question. He said, I don't really F with the media because all of them phony. He said, man, these dudes be, it's a lot of stuff that going on in the background. You know what I mean? These dudes be phony as hell. They can't stand my guts. Then they be in my face, fake smiling and this and that, but then tearing me down. And so he always had a distrust of the media. So, of course, now Bud is a little bit more out there, in the media, right? So they started making this comparison to Jaron Boots Ennis and Terence Crawford, right? And when Jaron Boots Ennis was over there at Showtime, fighting with Steven Espinosa and all that stuff there, he used to fight on a lot of PBC cards. And at that time, the PBC was anti-Terence Crawford. They controlled a lot of the YouTube media, the independent media outlets, YouTube. And a lot of the YouTubers, when I came on, were pro-PBC. Anything that lined up with the PBC, they was pro that. And anything that was outside of the PBC, they was the opposite. They didn't like them, right? I'm talking specifically black fighters. We're going to address the color line today, right? It's specifically black fighters. So Crawford was the black sheep. He was Black Freezer. He was the one that all the YouTube channels and the niggas didn't like, right? But it was all controlled by the mainstream. And I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. A lot of these promotional companies, they have great relationships with reporters and now even YouTubers, because the YouTubers and the mainstream media reporters, they want access to the fighters. They want access to inside information, breaking news type stories. So a lot of them are literally willing to sell their ass in order to get that access, you know what I mean, to that fighter or whatever. Because in this era, it's all about the clicks. This era, it's all about the clicks and the views. And, when you get that access, it kind of stamps you in this area in the sport of boxing as being legitimized and certified, right? So that's what it's all about. And some of these dudes will do something real strange for an interview. You get what I'm saying? I got some stories. I'm gonna be dropping names soon, and it won't be allegedly. But anyways, Yeah, so that's pretty much what that is, right? So the white corporate media and even the promotional companies like the Matchrooms, even Top Rank to some degree, PBCs and stuff, they didn't like this black nigga from Omaha, Nebraska. They didn't like him. You know what I'm saying? Because of his attitude. He really doesn't, he's very distrustful of the media. So now, but he did it his way. He ended up leaving Top Rank, made a lot of money right after he left. He made $6 million fighting Porter over there at Top Rank. Then he left and made a lot of money fighting Madrimal. And then he hit the tsunami with Canelo, 60-something million. You know what I mean? So when he grossed about, I think when I looked it up, when I Googled it, it was like he grossed over like $100 million in his career. That's a lot of fucking money. Of course, most of that money came from Turk Al Sheikh, but everybody who fight for Turk Al Sheikh will make good money. You dig? So because he saturated the market with a lot of big money. So Crawford is retired. It's cool and dandy. Now in comes Jaron Boots Ennis. Now there's a history with Philadelphia and Terence Crawford. What do I mean by that? I forgot the fighter's name. I think it was Ray Robinson or something of that. I think Ray Robinson or something of that sort. I think he beat Bud in the amateurs or the Olympic tryouts or something of that sort. And I'm hearing that it was a fight that broke out. A lot of dudes from Omaha was there. I think it was in Omaha. And they end up whooping up on some dudes from Philly and all that stuff there, Ray Robinson's camp and stuff like that, right? I mean, I wasn't there. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know the full details, but y'all get the synopsis of what I'm saying. And so Philly got an axe to grind with Black Freezer from Omaha, Nebraska. They ain't gonna never like this nigga. And I get that. Fine, no problem. When I say Philly, I'm not talking about every human being, every boxing fan from Philly. But you get what I'm saying though. YouTube channels, fighters and stuff like that. So in come Boots. So what they did was, Stephen Espinosa and them, I think they came up with a good plan. They used to always attach their name to Crawford because they was trying to protect Errol Spence from Crawford. And then, when you got to fight Boots, they were using Boots as a shield, pretty much. And, Boots didn't ask for that. No, I don't think he did. He didn't ask for that. Again, I'm not a fan of Boots, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm not a fan of a lot of these guys, right? But I'm going to be honest. From what I know, right? From what I was told from primary sources of information for people who was there. And then this right here, I remember this, as it relates to Boots. So they started comparing them, hey man, he's Boots, he's Crawford 2.0. They don't never say Boots is Errol Spence 2.0. They don't say he's, we talking about current fighters. We talking about the current fighters. He's Javante. They was kept comparing him to Black Freezer, Terence Crawford. So, because of the switch hitting and all that stuff there, right? And so they started doing that, mainstream media. And then, which was a good ploy because they do this and promoters will tie their name to another fighter in order to bring awareness to their fighter, because they're not doing a great job in promoting their fighter. So the way we can ride the coattail of this guy and start a little ruckus. So make a long story short, what does this have to do with the question Sean Zartel asked? Everything. So Crawford is retired. This is Boots doing his thing now. He was a unified champion in that welterweight. He was, he got emailed one of the belts, and then he fought the other email champ, Stanionis. And stylistically, that fight was all wrong for Stanionis. And Boots beat him up, got him out of there, and he became unified champion. Then he moves up. He fight Lima Bean, right? He fight Lima Bean from Germany. Paid him 2 Philly cheesesteaks after the fight. That's on video. And then, he went on to fight Xander Zayas last night. Beat Xander Zayas. And, I didn't know who the hell Xander Zayas fought. I can't tell you 3 fights that Xander Zayas have had. You get what I'm saying? I'm just being honest with you. I don't know nothing about the kid. Nothing. I looked at his resume. I'm like, Looked at Boots' resume. I'm like, You get what I'm saying? So you can only go by, from a stylistic standpoint, how they match up. I didn't see nothing that pop out about Xander Zayas. And again, I ain't got a dog in the race. I didn't pick either fighter. I think I said, Boots. I said, Boots should beat this dude right here. But I thought it was going to go 12 rounds. So it didn't go 12. Boots stopped him. So now Boots beats Xander Zayas, becomes a unified champion, and immediately after the fight, they're asking him about Terence Crawford. Now, they asked him about other things, but Sean Zartel brought up the Terence Crawford. Yeah, did you see the tweet? Like, what was the relevance of that question? The tweet literally didn't say nobody's name at all. So what's going on is this. Turkey Al-Sheikh. Now, this is allegedly. I got to say allegedly on this part. But I think it's obvious. Turkey Al-Sheikh, Eddie Hearn, who's been attaching Boot's name to Crawford, like a good promoter, riding that wave. And the mainstream media and stuff, they don't like the fact that Crawford made his money after boxing 17 years and retired. Bob Arum is happy. I'm happy he did it. You know what I mean? But I'm saying that Eddie Hearns and this and that. And so when I remember when I interviewed my brother, he spoke about how I told him, I said, look, these people was writing hit pieces on you. A hit piece is when I write something or make a video of something that's unfavorable to you. I want to try to make you look in a bad light or terrible light for whatever personal reasons or non-personal it may be. So I said, man, they're writing hit pieces on you, tearing you down, try to tear your character down. You know what I mean? Dismercify your character, destroy your name or in the media, right? And they're doing the same thing now. This has nothing to do with Boots. Boots is just being used as a tool from some of his fans. They don't know no better, but they're being guided by the media, because the media is very, very good at propagandizing stuff, right? And they actually set up questions. Me, I'm an interviewer, I know, right? So they look for a reaction. It's kind of like a shock jock. They look for a reaction. Some people do it blatantly, and some people do it subtle. The really good ones know how to do it subtle, to where they sneak some shit in there, and they word it in a certain way, and they're looking for a response for a headline or a title. You know what I mean? Like you got a couple of YouTubers that do that. I ain't gonna say no names, but the casuals, they just came in, you know what I mean? But they do that, right? Boots not knowing what was said. He just got in the fight. He like, man, I ain't worried about that shit, man. I ain't, he said the right thing. I ain't worried about that, Crawford, whatever. I'm moving on to active fighters. I'm not worried about no retired fighter. And then Bozy Ennis said, look, man, we ain't worried about Crawford, man. He retired, man. Like let that man be retired. Let that man enjoy his life. And then people started laughing and chuckling a little bit. I'm like, what was funny about that? See, what this is all about is this. The same people who didn't like Crawford yesterday despise the nigga today. Why? Because he was the one that got away. That's why they didn't like Floyd. He was the one that got away. 50-0, undefeated, and left the game richer than rich. Now, of course, Floyd blew a lot of his money. I heard he got a net worth of $50 million now, which is still mega rich. $50 million. He just don't have the billion he had in the bank before, right? So anyways, so they are trying to goad Crawford to come back because they don't want this. Remember, in this game, we don't want no niggas leaving unscathed. You don't leave the game on your own terms. You leave when we tell you to leave. And we want to, we want to see you fall. And then you can go. He left on top. They don't want us to leave on top. This is some real shit. So we got to get him back. Let's offer him some money. Man, financial advisor is Warren Buffett. He don't live an extravagant lifestyle. He don't blow his money at all. So we're just going to pay him and try to get him back because they want to set this dude up somehow. So we got to see him take a fall. And we want to pin him against Jaron Boots Ennis, another black fighter. Because they ain't got no white fighters that can challenge Terence Crawford. They ain't got no white fighters that they can't rely on their own fighters because their own fighters ain't really that. It ain't a bunch of them. They may take the Hispanic fighters who identify with white and they live vicariously through that, but that's what it is. They're trying to make this riff with a guy who's 10 years older than Jaron Ennis. that's now retired. And I'm glad that Boots and Bozy didn't take the bait on it. But that's what they was looking for. We got to try to pit them against each other because they started this whole riff in the beginning. That's what I explained to y'all, right? In the beginning of this video. And then we want the nigga to come out so Boots can try to beat him up or whatever because we know. And they say some of the dumbest shit. They try to play on your ego. Well, based on what we saw, what he did to Xander Zayas, like, who the fuck is Xander Zayas? But, you know, yeah, what you think he would have did to Crawford? You see what I'm saying? You know, yeah, man, he better not come back. He's scared. All that stuff there. Okay, well, if that's how you feel, you have a right to feel any way you want to feel. But I know what the real is. Y'all mad that the dude who boxed for 17 years and he knocked off everybody who you put in front of him. And then the great white Mexican hope, Saul Canelo Alvarez, who was a great fighter, y'all thought that was going to be it, and he dominated him. I mean, just not the domination from a boxing standpoint. Buckled him a couple of times. Had him doing the stanky leg in there. And then he took the money and he retired. There was no rematch clause or none of that. They still mad about that shit. This nigga left out on top. He left on his own terms. So now they got to try to bring the Boot situation back up. Yeah, this Crawford 2.0. This the new improved version of Crawford. Because they ain't got no white fighters or Arab fighters or even Mexican fighters or any other Hispanic fighters that they can compare, that they think that can challenge him and whoop him. They can't let us just go out on top. Let us just retire. After 31 years in the sport, 17 years as a pro. That's what this is all about. We're going to try to keep bringing the Crawford comparisons. I mean, again, this guy Crawford, who y'all say ain't fought nobody, he cheated. He really wasn't that good. You keep talking about him. Talk about Boots. Boots is the now. Crawford was the then. Talk about Boots. Talk about the greatness of Boots. Talk about him. What's Eddie Hearn, other fighter he got over there? Josh Kelly. Talk about Josh Kelly, the greatness of Josh Kelly. Ain't that y'all brother? Talk about how Josh Kelly can be the one to the throne. You know what I mean? The slick black fighter for Philly. You can't do that. So now, well, we got to try to create another storyline with Boots and Crawford because we mad that this nigga left out of his own turn because you ain't like the nigga in the beginning and you don't like him now. He know that. Y'all hear my dog out there barking. So that's really what's going on. Want to try to start a riff, some kind of beef between Crawford and Boots, which it ain't no beef. Showtime did a good job. Stephen Espinosa attaching his name to Crawford to build Boots' name up. And then now they mad that he retired. And they want to try to pit Boots against him. Well, we got to try to get him. You know what I mean? The offer, how much money we can offer him to make him come back. You ain't talking about Caleb Plant. You ain't talking about any other fighter that retired. Why you talking about the other dude? That's what this is all about. And I'm glad that Bud saw it. Bud like, yeah, these motherfuckers, I know these motherfuckers phony. Because Bud the type of dude, he'll look you in the eyes and see right through you and know you phony. He ain't gonna even say nothing. He know who all y'all is in the mainstream media. And y'all know he know who you is. Even some of the retired, I was gonna say even some of the retired fighters, but you know what I mean? But it is what it is. So this media thing is a dirty game. That's what this is all about. Yeah, man, y'all talk about Boots, man. The Boots did his thing. See, can you find a great European or great American white fighter to beat him up? Or maybe you can find another one. I don't know. Whoever y'all got. But I notice what the mainstream media does is y'all always try to pit us against each other because your fighters are inferior in comparison. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm not here to sugarcoat shit. I don't give a fuck about the mainstream boxing media. None of them. The niggas and the crackers. I don't give a damn about you. Because a lot of the niggas is cooning and the crackers is pushing their agenda. So I really don't care nothing about it. Myself. You get what I'm saying? But that's the reality of the situation. That's what it is, man. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. Peace.